Trees like ponderous giants dwarf the shadowy landscape. Their roots are wet from the creeks that travel over the dim floor below. This is a land that no human has yet witnessed. It has been millions of years since the Earth's shifting continental plates pushed New Zealand away from its neighbours Australia and Antarctica. Left on its own in the Pacific, the New Zealand ecosystem has evolved in isolation. Dinosaurs are now long gone, and no mammals have arrived to take their place. New Zealand is a land of birds and of insects, and the vast lowland forests teem with life. But there is one species, more than any other, that is responsible for the health of the forest. The native wood pigeon, or Kereru, does its work for the forest by eating. Kereru are the only birds in New Zealand with mouths large enough to swallow the fruits of the giant forest trees and digestive systems that allow these seeds to pass through intact. Kereru eat a large amount in each sitting. They can eat so much fruit that it ferments inside them, making them intoxicated. This behavior will give them a place in the hearts of the people who will one day come to live here.
The pigeons were back yesterday eating more fruit from the guava tree. The fruit is now completely ripe and the greedy birds can be seen here most mornings. I am always amazed at how much they eat. I cannot imagine how they fit it all in. They are certainly in quite a state when they are finished and frequently fall from their perches. When they fly, they do so awkwardly and sometimes not at all. The poor things even stumble on their feet while walking across the lawn. They are a never-ending source of entertainment.
Whether sober or not, Kereru need a long time to digest their food. And even in these pre-human forests, they spend long hours just sitting. It is this aspect of their lifestyle that makes them so important to the forest. Where they roost is also where they spread the seeds from whatever they've eaten. In this way, they create a tapestry of forest trees, mixing their food species with the taller trees they use for roosting. The broad diet of the Kereru means that they perform this courier service for many species. It's a tight-knit relationship. Kereru have to eat constantly, travelling and feeding in a never-ending search for more. The forest and the species that live in it would not survive without the constant regeneration provided by the Kereru. Over millions of years of evolution, Kereru and the forest trees have developed this close relationship, making the forest healthy and keeping these giant flocks constantly on the move. Kereru were not always here. One theory says that, like the Maori who were to follow, the Kereru's distant roots lie far to the north in the dense, humid forests of the tropics. It's a story that takes us back 20 million years to the middle of the Miocene epoch.
Although these are fossils, they're very young fossils. They're only 1,000 or 2,000 years old, so in an evolutionary sense, they can't tell us very much about the relationships of Kereru at all. For that, we need to look back much further in time to see if we can figure out what these birds are related to. In fact, we know almost nothing about the evolution of any pigeons. The fossil record of pigeons is incredibly poor. The oldest ones are only about 20 million years old anywhere in the world. The evolution of pigeons worldwide is very poorly known, but one thing we do know is that some of them have gained a gigantic size. These bones here of this one here is a tibia of a dodo. This is a huge flightless pigeon. If you compare this tibia, which is the long leg bone, to a Kereru's one, you'll see how absolutely massive the dodo is. We've got one of the oldest fossils ever found of a pigeon, which we found in Otago a couple of years ago, and this is it. It's a ulna, which is an outer wing bone, like in a human's outer arm. And this is the same bone from a Kereru, but it's so fragmentary we can't tell anything about its relationships. 16 to 19 million years ago, when the bird that produced this fossil was alive, it was living in a much warmer climate than is in Otago today. It was about 7 degrees warmer, and there were palms, there were eucalypts, like Australian gum trees, living there. There was a greater diversity of birds, much greater diversity of birds, it seems, than is living today. So there were probably a much larger number of species of pigeons alive then than there are now.
The ancestors of the Kereru were probably blown here by storms or on the westerly winds that developed off Australia at this time. The world was very warm during the Miocene and warmest during the Middle, about 10 million years ago, when the tropics expanded all over the globe. Pigeons arriving in New Zealand were part of a spread that was happening worldwide. Over millions of years, the world got steadily colder, favouring species that could adapt to temperate climates. Perhaps the large Kereru, with its broad taste in food and strong flying abilities, was able to adapt when other smaller species were not. As the New Zealand climate became more temperate, Kereru would have linked their breeding efforts to seasonally abundant food supplies, nesting for only 2 months a year, unlike tropical species that can have a 7-month breeding season. Kereru are incredibly abundant in these ancient forests. Flocks of 500 or more fly from place to place in search of the best fruits and flowers. It's late summer, and the chicks from the previous year have fledged, no longer needing the protection of their nests. Here in early spring, the Kereru are lazy, fat with the fruit they have found. The adults have long since stopped feeding their chicks. They can look after themselves now. It's time to start thinking about a family for next year, and that means finding a new mate. Courtship involves an impressive display flight. A Kereru, usually the male, takes off quickly from the top of a large tree. It stalls, glinting in the sun, hovering with its wings outstretched for one glorious second, and then comes gliding back down to join its mate. Nesting typically occurs in spring or early summer, just before the fruiting season. Both parents take part in the nesting. Like many long-lived species, Kereru breeds slowly, just 1 egg per nest, and parents take special care with each nestling. Both adults sit on the nest during the 28-day incubation period. The female sits through the night and morning. The male takes over from midday until the evening. In about 7 days, the young open their eyes. Pigeons and doves are some of the few birds to produce food for their chicks. They feed them on crop milk secreted by the crop wall, and it's rich in protein. At first, crop milk is the chicks' only food, but as they grow, the parents regurgitate fruit and other foods. 5 to 7 weeks after hatching, the chicks are ready to fledge and follow their parents, watching and learning. Before long, they are old enough to forage on their own. This cycle has been going on generation after generation, virtually unchanged for the millions of years that New Zealand has been in existence. But nothing lasts forever.